Hello and welcome to another video review brought to you by yours truly, Thorazine. Today we're going to be taking a look at another Mortal Kombat figure by the way of Scorpion from the Mortal Kombat Classic line. This is a 3 3/4 inch, or rather a 4-inch figure as they're marketed, but as you can see he does scale well with other 3 3/4 inch figures such as the Marvel Universe and G.I. Joe line. Once you account for a little bit of height difference here because of the stands, you see it's pretty much the same height as Deadpool and the Cobra Jungle Bat, maybe a little bit smaller, but still perfectly in scale with those type of figures. Scorpion is another recolor of the classic ninja mold from the Mortal Kombat line, which may seem like a bit of a drag, but does stay true to the original animation model through the Mortal Kombat video games, at least as far as through the trilogy video game. My biggest qualms about this figure are the kind of matte finish that they used for the paint applications. It does give the figure kind of a self-painted feel or slightly cheap feel. Also, the slightly rubbery plastic that they use for the figure is not the greatest. As you can see, the peg for the elbow assembly is not quite tight because of the slightly rubbery plastic. Not a deal breaker for me. Most of my figures get played with once during a review, whether it be video or written, and then placed on a stand and then put on a shelf, usually never to be touched again. So as long as they look good standing on my shelf, I'm generally pretty happy with them. But for those of you who do like to get a little bit of play out of your figures, that is something that you may want to keep in mind. With that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at the articulation on this guy. In the elbow, or the ankle, excuse me, you'll find a hinge which allows you to move the foot down and up, as well as a swivel point that allows for 360-degree rotation at the ankle there. The knee is hinged, which allows for about 90 degrees of motion there, as well as 360 degrees of rotation. The hips here are ball jointed, which allow for roughly 90 degrees of lateral motion and about the same in the forward motion. You can also rotate the leg a full 360 degrees at the hip there. Nothing in the waist. Mid-torso there is that typical kind of rocker motion. It allows you to tilt the upper body forward and backwards slightly, as well as turn it from side to side. You do get a full 360 degree rotation there mid-torso. The hands are attached with the typical peg and hole assembly, which allow for 360 degree rotation at the wrist. Elbows are single hinged, allowing for roughly 90 degrees of motion there, as well as a swivel point that allows for 360 degree rotation. In the shoulder, you'll find the typical ball hinge, which allows for slightly over 90 degrees of lateral motion in the arm, as well as a swivel point that provides 360 degree rotation for the arm. The head is attached with a typical paw joint, which allows you to move the head forward and back slightly, as well as cock it slightly side to side for some expressive posing. And you do get a full 360 degree rotation out of that ball joint also. Final thoughts on this figure. Not the worst figure I've ever had. They do tend to get a little bit of slack for quality control from Jazewares, which can rightfully be justified. The slightly cheaper plastic and the kind of matte finish on the paint do give the figure a slightly cheap feel. All in all, if you like the figures, or if you like the characters, I definitely didn't have a problem myself picking this guy up to finish off my ninja set. I do have a slight affinity towards 3 3/4 inch figures, so anything that I can get to scale with my G.I. Joes and Marvel figures, I'm generally pretty happy with, unless there's some insanely horrible QC on them. There's nothing too bad about this, but nothing too great either. They are slightly plain, which is kind of true to the character model also, so I can't really fault them too much there. Compared to the cyborgs from the Cyborg 3-pack in the classic line, I can see where these were a bit of a letdown for other people. If you can get them at a decent price, I definitely would recommend them. I wouldn't go any much more than retail, maybe $10 on this guy. If you really want them, look around on the secondary market. Like I said, quality may be an issue for a lot of people with these guys, so I wouldn't overspend on them. I myself am pretty happy with it, but I know how picky a lot of us can be in the hobby. That being said, this has been another video review by Thorazine. Thank you for watching. Tune in again when we'll be looking at some more toys. One small addendum to this review: I did realize after I stopped taping that some of you may notice the peg holes on the bottom of the feet. I did want to quickly point out that these figures do not come with peg holes in the feet. These are something that I added afterwards. So that is something you may also want to note. I just don't want to mislead anybody to think that they do have peg holes in their feet.